to you for switching your plans and joining us virtually tonight for our first In Conversation series. This event is kicking off a year of conversations and acknowledgments about ongoing and unfinished revolutions across our nation. And the Delaware Historical Society welcomes friends and colleagues to the table here to discuss the sesquicentennial, rather, of the United States, the state of Delaware, and the city of Wilmington. Tonight, we're going to be moderated by our fearless leader, Ivan Henderson, who is the executive director of the Delaware Historical Society, and he'll be joined with cultural heritage representatives, city officials, as well as museum leaders from across the state of Delaware tonight to have a conversation about what this 250th anniversary means. Before we begin today's event, I would like to acknowledge with respect that we are gathering today virtually, at least in Delaware, on Lenape-Hoking, which is the traditional homeland of the Lenape people for tens of thousands of years. Sometimes translated to the original people, the Lenape were known as mediators and called the grandfathers. Encompassing the Delaware River Basin, Lenape-Hoking includes present-day New Jersey, most of Delaware, the eastern parts of New York, and Pennsylvania, and was home at one point to over 20,000 Lenape people. Thank you again for joining us today. I'm going to hand it over to Ivan Henderson to kick off our first In Conversation series at the Delaware Historical Society. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Hannah, for that introduction, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, my name is Ivan Henderson, Executive Director at Delaware Historical Society. Thank you, everybody, like Hannah said, for pivoting to doing this online. And to be honest, we may have better attendance now that we were able to switch this to an online conversation format. Always something to think about for everything that we do moving ahead. It's just a different world now. But when we reach these months and these events, weather events, it's great to have a place to pivot. I want to thank all of our partners who will be here speaking with me today. Tina Betz, who's the Director of Cultural Affairs for the City of Wilmington, is a good friend and colleague, and is a cultural force supporting arts and culture in the City of Wilmington. She's beloved for her work coordinating community events, including the Clifford Brown Jazz Festival, the annual Independence Day celebration, and running the Urban Artists Exchange. Also with us today, we have Molly Giordano, Executive Director of the Delaware Art Museum, also someone I've gotten to know over the years and work with and enjoy working with. Molly grew up as an arts lover and has been an impactful leader in the area for more than a decade. Giordano has helped steward the Delaware Art Museum as a community resource for Delawareans through exciting projects like the Art is Everywhere campaign. Erik Raser-Schramm, who is not on the line and will likely join us a little bit later today, is the director of Delaware 250. In this role, he's tasked with developing programming and engagements that get people excited about Delaware's 250th anniversary. Erik has an extensive background serving in various roles supporting Delawareans at state and local levels. And last but not least, my friend and colleague Shysheika Edwards, Executive Director of the Christina Cultural Arts Center. Shysheika is a dynamic leader in the arts and childhood education, overseeing the growth and service of Christina Cultural Arts Center. Her approach to guiding CCAC appeals to the learners and us all. And so, again, thank you folks for joining us. It's good to be familiar with y'all because we have some big questions around what's going on this year in our acknowledgement of America's 250th birthday, and along with that, Delaware's. But obviously, every day, I think we're presented with new information, new evidence, and new ideas to confront and help us think critically about this time as we celebrate it. And so we'll go through some topics around the meaning of the sesquicentennial, this Delaware's separation, some of our current and ongoing events that'll help us think about this together in public throughout this year and in the years ahead. And of course, ways for Delawareans and visitors to the region to get involved in some of the things we're talking about. And so I will just dive right into our questions. I will start out by choosing folks to respond. But from there, I'd like to be a little bit more organic with the order of responses and all of that. I will apologize in advance. I'll be on and off camera because I'm also having some technical stuff going on here, but I will be in the conversation the whole time. And so I'll start with Tina Betz, just to lead us into the conversation here. Um, Tina, here's a big one, and I'll invite everyone to answer. What does the 250th anniversary mean for Delawareans and for Americans?
Tina, you're muted.
You're muted, Tina.
Of course I am. And it was what I just said was extremely profound and interesting. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to replicate that or not. So I'll have to start over. I, you know, I think any celebration, especially historical celebrations, mean different things to each of us. And I think that it depends on our life experiences. It depends on what we already know or what we think we already know. So that's what makes that question so difficult. What I hope for me personally is to learn something new, and I've done that. I have been charged with helping the city put together a series of activities throughout the year. So that's afforded me the opportunity to do a deeper dive than I normally would have done. And I hope that that's the same for anybody who at least has heard about the 250th, that they are curious enough to do just a little bit of a deeper dive about why we are doing this, why it's important for us to recognize milestones such as this. So I guess the bottom line is it really means something different to everybody. To some people, it doesn't mean anything. To some people, they won't even be aware that it's happening, unless there is an activity that brings their attention to the celebration. And that's one of the things we hope to do with the activities that we're planning throughout the year. People who don't think they're in, who may not just think, may not be interested in the celebration, will be interested in something that we're doing that will connect them to the celebration.
Thank you, Tina. I especially, appreciate the point that while we're living in this moment and living in this year of commemoration, there's also an opportunity to maybe excite some sort of interest in a person and send them to do their own research or become interested in any single topic that we explore this year. Molly, I'll ask the same question to you. What does the 250th mean for Delawareans and Americans? And I'll follow with you, Shysheika.
Well, I think much like Tina said, it means so many different things. And at the Delaware Art Museum, we really see ourselves as a convening place for artists and for civic and community dialogue. And what we're most excited to is to figure out through that artistic lens, the visual arts medium, how are the people across the state seeing it? Both our professional artists, but also our citizens. So we have two big projects coming up, and I can talk more about them later. One is called Citizen Artist. It's a big exhibition that opens April 11th and will run through July 19th. And that's sort of our anchor program. But we have another one called Citizen Photographer, and we're about to launch the call for photographs from any Delawarean, where we kind of want to see through their lens. What does this moment mean to them? What does it mean to be a Delawarean at the semi-sesquicentennial? And we are just excited to get those photographs, get those responses. And I think in this moment, it's impossible for any of us to say what it really means. But the one thing I will say is that we have done through our amazing curator of contemporary art, Margaret Winslow, quite a bit of research at the bicentennial back in 1976. And there was such a robust response, highly funded by the federal government, passed through to the state government. Big corporations participated. There was so much commemorative, both celebratory and reflective content being created. And without quite as much of that happening today, It feels like what it really means at the semi-sesquicentennial is that it's going to be a citizen-led response, that we probably aren't going to see that level of large federal programming. And that gives us a space as citizens to organize and come forward and work with partners like the Historical Society and the Art Museum to kind of pave the way. And when I often think in 50 years or 100 years, how are people going to look back? And when they look back, I hope that's what they take from it is a citizen-led convening and that we, the people, are bringing that voice forward and at the Art Museum, that will be through the artistic voice.
Thank you, Molly. I'll tell my age a bit. I often think about, yes, what will folks look back and see in 50 years or in 100 years? I often ask that question. I was born the year after the bicentennial, and so revealing a little bit about myself. But I think about how much the world has changed, and how even a person like myself would be in a position at an institution like this today as opposed to what would have been possible or more natural across the cultural landscape in 76. And so, we're making history whether we like it or not and whether we know it or not. So I appreciate your definition or your sharing your thoughts there, Molly. Shysheika, same question for you. What does this anniversary mean for Delawareans and Americans?
I actually concur with what has been said so far. It does mean so many things to so many people, and there are some who I think, like Tina said, have absolutely no idea about this at all. However, I think from a personal standpoint, I think this 250th celebration or this year period um, at this time for me means that we are survivors, that we are fighters as a country, as a state. And I know for us, Christina Cultural Arts Center in particular, we are celebrating our 80 years. So we're excited. We've just celebrated 80 years. Yes, thank you. Um, and we're looking forward to 80 more. And I think thinking about this particular monumental year makes me think about the fact that we often say at Christina that we do everything so that we can make sure that we are still around for 80 more years. So I think the same thing is true for Delaware. Everything that our organizations are going to be doing sets the stage, I believe, for the next 250 years. It sets the stage for the next 300 years, et cetera, so that when people look back, they can see that all of these organizations on this call, and even the ones that are not on this call in the city of Wilmington, are making waves and doing things so that we can continue to be survivors and continue to be fighters, especially in today's social and political climate.
Thank you, Shashika. Yeah, I think while we're looking at the nation's birthday and again what's happened since that point of inflection 250 years ago,
Mm.
and some of the revolutions that go on. One of
Mhm.
the things that we know about Delaware in particular, but about many communities, is that using the laws and the systems that come as part of being a part of this nation, we are able to establish and create lasting, sustainable tools for our communities and ways to serve them. So, congrats to Christina Cultural Arts Center for being in its 80th year. But that word survival, along with an eye towards the future, I think is a huge takeaway from your comments. So thank you, Shashika. So I'll move right along, folks. Is Erik on the line with us yet? I'll uh I'll move right along, and us Hannah or Brittany, please let me know when and if he joins us if I don't see.
Will do.
Um, Thank you. So, folks, museums and cultural heritage sites are important spaces where people learn and engage with the past. We see it every day. What new and ongoing experiences related to the 250th can visitors expect to participate in? And I'll push this one to you first, Tina, with what you're doing with Wilmington 250. what are the things that people can expect to encounter this year throughout the year as they're trying to learn about America's 250th?
We are going to, as you or your staff knows, Ivan, have a press conference. I think it's February 3rd, where the mayor will roll out, the activities that we have planned for the year. So I don't want to get too far out ahead of that, because we need to cross the T's and dot the I's. I can tell you, however, that the activities that are being planned, and I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge the 250th Planning Committee. It's a really dedicated group of people that got together and did some hard work with coming up with a bunch of ideas and then being able to distill them down to things, realistic and capable things that we will be able to do during the course of the year. And it covers the ideas and the activities go across the board with arts and culture, history. You see, I have some cheat notes here. There's poetry. This is all that's planned. It will be set in stone, we hope, on February 3rd. So there's poetry. So we're commissioning a dance piece and a song, and there's going to be purely celebratory activities that we're planning. Um, the partners came up with some great ideas. Our planning committee came up with some great ideas, and Ivan, you were on that planning committee, as was a couple of other people I see online, Tori, Shysheika, and see, who else do I see? I saw somebody else, and I can't remember who that is right now. Lanny was on from Downtown Visions. Um, so what we're trying to do with the time that we have, and is to have things that are relevant to many different interests. There will be history, discovering new places. What we found out, for example, is that we have British and other nationality soldiers buried. Their remains are buried right here in Wilmington at the Wilmington I think Wilmington Brandywine Cemetery. I didn't know that. And I'm almost certain that there are a lot of other people, um, who don't know that also. So that's going to be really interesting. So we'll have a walking tour that will include that sort of discovery that we've been able to pull as we're digging for things to do and interesting things, and that people don't know about. There will be a blog series that will happen throughout the year. So a lot of different areas. We're trying to touch as many touch points as we can. The history aspect is important. We're trying to present the history in ways that are interesting and uplifting, even things that may not have been uplifting. If you know what I mean. I mean, we want to tell the story in full, but we also want to talk about the progress that we've made, the progress that we hope we would have made after 250 years, and maybe we're not quite there yet. So we still have work. To do. So those are the types of messaging that we'd like to get out to people. That we're talking about celebrating. We're also talking about being cognizant of the work we still have to do based on what that original idea was. As we move forward.
Thank you for that, Tina. Of course, the Historical Society manages several physical sites that we hope that folks will come and visit some of our older buildings and understand why we take care of these things, of course. But also we want to draw folks back out. I think we're still, in the heritage community, even rebounding and recovering from the pandemic, and that folks were not able to come out in person. And we see tonight, maybe it's not always about being in person. We still need to stay in conversation with one another. And so Zoom and other things give us the ability to do it. But I like what you said about, that there's still things to discover. In this moment, we're celebrating, we're commemorating, we want to tell the truth. But there's also still cool things to discover. And so I think about new, old history, and I put new and old in quotes, But there's always new ideas if we just look around in our own backyard, or we allow a new generation of scholars and a new generation of speakers to review the evidence and see what they see in our own backyards. And so I think this year and the years ahead can be exciting for that reason. There's this idea of progress, not perfection, that we've made in 250 years, and therefore we can still talk about the work that needs to be done, some stuff that's glaring right now that we still need to work on together. But I do appreciate that in your response, and I will wait for Mayor Carney to announce all of the good stuff that's going on. But I just wanted to tee you up with that. So let me push this question to Molly and Shysheika. Both of you are asked to answer this. How do museums, arts organizations, and other cultural heritage sites connect people to the 250 years of Delaware's establishment? And Molly, maybe this is where you speak about the citizen artist and citizen photographer a little more closely. And
Yeah.
Shashika, some of the ways you all are thinking about engaging throughout this year.
Well, we knew that lots of organizations, historic homes, would probably be looking back at their collections, pieces that are tied to the country's history, the country's founding. So we decided to take a completely different approach. We think of how labor-led artist movements have shaped and built our country during times of change and upheaval. And Margaret, our brilliant curator, has been working on this concept for about 5 years, actually a little bit before COVID, I believe. And she's looking at those labor workforce moments, starting with the Works Progress Administration, when artists and many others in our society were put to work. Of course, building infrastructure, bringing communities together, but also creating great works of art that reflect the human spirit, the American spirit. And then we move forward into the 1970s, which is a lesser known moment of a big federally funded workforce program. It was called CETA. And they were really block grants that were given to regions and communities to decide how to get people back to work, how to spur economic development. And a lot of communities chose to take a chunk of that, give them to artists and community and civic arts leaders, and to say, how can we make our communities more vibrant? How can we connect our communities together, connect people to each other? And there were many, many, just in Wilmington, just in Delaware, many efforts that founded organizations like the Delaware Contemporary. That was the founding moment, was sort of spurring these artists to connect and to do work out in our communities. So the exhibition is an interesting look at those historic moments. And the third leg of it is connecting it to today. What is happening today that we can take that momentum, the movements that are afoot, the funding that's available that might not be directly for the arts, but artists are creative and resilient. And how can we direct some funding, direct some support, and see how they can similarly get out in our communities, make an impact, create great works of art, bring forward the momentum of the community spirit we're trying to build. So this exhibition called Citizen Artist really reflects broadly historical documents, works of art created by artists during those federally funded programs. It opens April 11th and goes through July 19th. As I said previously, that's really just the anchor. The exhibition will be in our large special exhibition space at the museum. But surrounding it will be numerous programs, including a citizen artist symposium the weekend after 4th of July festivities have ended, that are bringing together local citizens and scholars from across the country to really connect on this artistic labor moment and to think about how we're carrying it forward into our present moment. Citizen Photographer is a related project where we've chosen 3 organizations, one in each county across the state. Photographers will be giving free workshops to citizens who live in those communities, encouraging them to use the prompt, what does it mean to be a Delawarean at our 250th? They will be asked, along with any other citizen in the state, you don't have to take the workshop to participate, to upload those photos to a free portal. And a section of Citizen Artist is going to feature about 20 photographs from Delawareans across the state. We're not going to say what the subject matter should be. We want it to be wide and diverse, subject, geography, whatever it is somebody feels like they want to present. So we're really excited to share the photographs of Delawareans both at the museum in the Citizen Artist exhibition, also at the 3 sites across the state where they will host their own exhibition this summer, and sort of connect all those pieces back together. Because as I said in the opening, the Delaware Art Museum is but the platform. We're really there to convene the artists, the scholars, the citizens to really have open dialogue about what this moment means. And we're hoping citizen artist, citizen photographer will create that moment and will create the gathering place for people to have some of these conversations. We want people to see themselves in this work, see themselves at this moment in the 250th, and stay tuned. We'll have plenty of other artist talks and classes and moments, but so far that's what we have planned, and it certainly feels like an ambitious year.
Well, thank you. No, I'll say appropriately so. I think it's an appropriately ambitious year. And Shysheika, I'll ask you the same. As the leader of an arts organization, um, how does your organization or how do organizations in our sectors connect people to the 250 years of the Delaware's establishment and America's establishment?
Well, for Christina Cultural Arts Center, I will say that this particular year is going to be a very, very special year for us. Not just because last year began our 80th year celebration, but because we are also going to be doing a lot. The same way that Molly said this is going to be an ambitious year for us. It is as well. So, to celebrate the 250th, we have a number of events coming up, some of which I'm going to give hints about, but I'm not going to actually give a lot on because I want you guys to come out and see it. I have to start off with please come out to the first Friday's Art Loop, where we will be having Oba Moore come out to um, show his exhibition in our gallery as a part of the art loop that we have going on Market Street. And Oba, if you do not know, he is an amazing artist, but also he has a tattoo shop on Market Number on Shipley and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, I think it is, Shipley and third. It's something like that, but he's close to us, but he is an absolute amazing artist that I think will shine a lot of light on um, being male African American um, in this moment and in America. So his art is eye-opening as well as catching and engaging. And I promise you will love every moment of walking into our building and seeing all that he has to offer. Christina Cultural Arts Center also wants to connect the people to this moment through our Chasing the Blues Away sessions. As I mentioned in my previous comments about, our current socio and political climate. Chasing the Blues Away was a workshop series that was born out of those concerns that families and citizens in Wilmington have. And we try to offer them workshops that make them feel good about being here and in this moment through the arts. We do it through dance sessions and artistic expression. And one time we had a fashion show. So I can't tell you what's going to happen this year because I do know that my team is steadily planning and diligently doing their work to make sure that that is a success. But we definitely want to make sure that this is a year through those sessions that people are just celebrating being alive and celebrating this moment and celebrating the fact that we have survived, that we are thriving, and that we are still fighters. We also, as Christina Cultural Arts Center is known for, we are Delaware's premier arts organization, we like to say. And we do have arts classes that are available, but it will culminate into what we know as our June recital, where you will see our students and students in the community. And really, Christina Cultural Arts Center's whole mission is to empower the community through the arts. And that is what we do. And so in June, you will see that. You will also see us having jam sessions that will center around this moment in history, this wonderful moment. Where we'll invite the community in to come and jam with our artists and bring your instrument. If your instrument is your voice, if your instrument is a washboard, if it's a spoon, please come, okay? Please come and jam with us. We would love to have you. But then also, we will also have our literary cafe, which in previous years we've featured an artist, a literary artist who's written beautiful works. We've featured Toni Morrison, where a few artists came together, and it was a lot of song and dance and reading excerpts. Um, and one year, we just celebrated music, and then the other year we celebrated one local artist. Well, this year, um, because we're having it in March, we're also having a poet. So it's this year's literary cafe is going to be mainly centered around poetry. So that's all I'm going to say because I want you to come out. I will say too, we also have step and sips. So if you want to come out and just have fun and just enjoy and celebrate, step and sips are for you. If you like dancing, come and step with us. We're also excited about the fact that Michael Mayo will be with us in October, who is a wonderful jazz artist. And I think through that moment, we'll be able to just celebrate again being alive. So October, I believe the date is October 23rd, but don't quote me. Go to our website. It'll be there hopefully by the end of this week. But Michael Mayo will be with us at Christina Cultural Arts Center. And then also our every year we have our carols in color, and then also in celebrating our city, celebrating who we are as Delawareans, celebrating Wilmington. It's our Soul of the City Festival, and that will be September 19th. And we are excited about it because I believe one of my staff is on the call too tonight, so she'll correct me, but I believe we're in our 10th year. We're in our 10th year doing our Soul of the City Festival, and that will be right outside Market Street, where we will be celebrating Wilmington being 250 years. We'll be celebrating. And I cannot tell you any of the artists that'll be there because we've not secured them totally yet. But trust me when I say you'll enjoy even seeing our dancers, our local artists, as well as artists around the DMV area. And then I would also like to definitely make sure that everyone is aware that we are connecting the community through this moment, through what is now what we affectionately call the hub. So Christina Cultural Arts Center, December of 2023, acquired a new facility. No, we are not moving. But we do have a new facility. We now have a campus, and we call it the Hub at 715. It's at 715 Orange Street. So literally right behind Christina Cultural Arts Center, where at that point, we are now trying to give a voice to the under-resourced new history makers, by helping them to be able to sell their wares, understand how to do business planning. So this particular hub is for the artist. It's for that one who is trying to figure out how to make a living doing what they love to do. So think of CSC Station, think of the mill, but just for artists, because we want them to be history makers. We want them to not just survive, but thrive. So this year, we're connecting the community through all of those things. And as the executive director of Christina Cultural Arts Center, I invite all of you to all of that. And if you want any other information, call me.
Thank you so much, Shysheika, and everyone for your responses to those last couple questions. Just on behalf of the Delaware Historical Society, You know, one of the things, or many of the things that we do, are trying to present ourselves in renewed ways to folks as people are learning about America's 250th. Again, we are responsible for stewardship of over 3 million pieces of Delawareana objects available through our research library and at our sites. And so in many cases, we're digitizing some old resources or things that are pretty commonly sought after as new generations of writers and scholars try to make sense of what they understand about the region's history and American history. We're also, if you've been up and down Market Street, you've seen a renewed facade at our research library. Not just to have another pretty face, which it really is on a Market Street, but also to make sure that everyone who needs access sees it as an accessible place and as a pleasant place to come and learn and engage, again, with materials that date back in many cases to the earliest years of the First State. You've met at least Hannah Grantham and Brittany Henry, at least those folks from Delaware Historical Society as part of this event. But along with all of our other staff members, we're creating new avenues of interpretation. Again, so allowing new conversation or inviting new conversation about some of the same histories and narratives we may have known before. And of course, along with that, those sort of new avenues to interpretation, also just new categories of activities that we're trying to move around the first state and physically visit places that matter to people. Sometimes invest in those places by pouring a little bit of love and little bit of help of cleaning up in those places and renewing people's engagements with their stories. And so you'll see more of that, more and more of that as we think about America's 250th. Again, protecting and collecting the evidence for future generations to understand on their own. So I want to shift to a tough question, but I'll ask everyone to answer it, and I'll definitely go last. But I think it's worth asking, especially right now. As leaders guiding organizations through the unique circumstances we find ourselves in at the present, what responsibilities do you feel during a milestone year like this? And so I know all of you have described some of the things you have going on, and some of the desired outcomes, but what's really going into your thinking, especially given the unique circumstances we're facing every minute of every day right now? What do you feel during a milestone year like 2026 as a responsibility of your role?
Well, I'll jump in, Ivan. I think the inspiration for what we're trying to achieve is that artists, we believe, interpret our past and present, and they imagine new futures in ways that nobody else can. And at this moment, we're all trying to figure out, where do we belong in this country? What is the future going to look like? And I personally feel, and I know the museum takes this stance too, that artists are such an important part of the equation at a moment where they are being dismissed or defunded or told they don't have a place, when really artists have always had a very strong role in shaping the history of this country. I mean, for example, great historical paintings. I am sure you're all watching Ken Burns's Revolutionary War docuseries. One of our founding artists at the museum's collection, Howard Pyle, heavily featured. He was imagining what those battle scenes looked like. That's often how we're able to interpret the far past. But as we're trying to, I can't say interpret because the future hasn't happened yet, as we're trying to understand what those pathways look like, nothing brings people together for a collective aha moment that you cannot put into words, like a great work of art, whether it be music or visual arts or a dance performance. We are trying to bring together the collective understanding that those voices matter, artistic labor matters, we should be supporting it. And we think great things are going to come out of it. And we never know. We never know what's going to happen when you platform somebody, what they're going to create, what's going to take off, what's not going to be remembered in history. But that's what we're trying to achieve. And it's a really important moment. And I think we still haven't fully grappled with COVID. I think there's a lot of that our artists are trying to communicate about the experience that we've been through. But I do believe strongly that in decades' time, people are going to look back and what they're going to remember the most is not the proliferation of Instagram stories or online content or news articles. They're going to remember the great works of art and how that shaped their understanding. And that's what I hope we can have coming out of this. Oh, can I have one more thing and then I promise I'm done. So we haven't publicly announced it yet, but do you all know that the picture from the Great Depression, it's called Migrant Woman. It's a woman flanked by her two children. I think they're fleeing the Dust Bowl. It's sort of the most famous photograph that was taken during the Depression era. The original is owned by MoMA and it's being lent to the Delaware Art Museum for a citizen artist exhibition, which we're really excited about. So if you just think of your understanding of the Great Depression just in that one photograph, could we have a moment where there is a photograph that is a collective understanding of what it means to be a Delawarean in 50 years? That's how we're trying to think of it.
But that's great news, Molly. The Delaware Art Museum is always sort of on the cutting edge of looking forward, with what's important, not just now, but even, in the future. So that's great. One of the things that as a city that's really core to what we will be doing with everything that we're going to be doing over the next year is partnership, working with other organizations, other individuals who are doing their work, working in partnership with them to get the word out, to make sure that everybody that we can touch knows that it's not just about the city of Wilmington, it's about the Christina Cultural Arts Center, it's about the Delaware Art Museum, it's about, everybody who is doing something that may be a little different, but then, being different could be just something new to somebody. It doesn't have to be something that we're doing for the first time. So partnership is key to everything that the city of Wilmington will be doing moving forward. There are a couple I think that's where I want to go with your question, Ivan. It's like, what's important and working together. Every change, I think that we can look back, through history, it was always collaborative. Anything that was a success or that moved, us forward as a people, it was a collaborative effort. It was done in partnership with many diverse communities being involved. So that's what it is that will be the core of what the city of Wilmington will do for the 250th celebration.
So I
Thank
think for me, we have, I'm sorry, Ivan, I'm just like
you.
hopping in.
Go ahead.
For me, I feel like Christina Cultural Arts Center has a responsibility as as my colleague had mentioned to me, um, to stand up, to tell the truth, and um, to make sure that erasure doesn't happen. Um, in this moment, in this time in history, where, like Molly said, artists are pretty much at the bottom of the totem pole at this juncture. I think it's important that the stories are told and that we stand up, um, not just as artists, but as people, as brothers and sisters. Um, and so I think Christina Cultural Arts Center, what we are doing and what we want to continue to do is to tell the truth, tell our stories, and we do that through the arts, and empower others to tell their stories and to live, and just to ensure that our history and who we are is not erased. um and we're doing that through 715. We're doing that in the halls of at 705 at our headquarters. But then also this year, I forgot to put that shameless plug in. We'll be also working with the Delaware Historical Society with something really, really big, a big learning experience that just tells our story um, through music. So we're excited.
Thank you all for that, and thank you for responding first. I know that we have to speak carefully. I think that's always been true. I think it's more important now to be able to tell the truth, be very clear about what we're doing, but also understand that not everyone is of the same mind, or not everyone is works in the same areas that we do, or believe in the importance of arts and culture in these moments. And so for me, part of my leadership right now is playing the long game, that we have a responsibility to tell every truth that we know, and to dispel a few myths as we've
Mhm.
discovered them to be myths over the years. That's part of what we do. At a historical society, we have to let history become history. And so that also gives us a buffer, a little bit of time to let the events as we witness them rest and mature a little bit. And again, it actually puts the responsibility on someone a few years from now to pick up the pieces, whatever evidence we have collected today, and decide what it meant, what 2026 meant to them at some point in the future. And so for me, it's making sure that we do the careful work right now. I won't say without emotion, because that's impossible, but I will say without bias, or with as little bias as possible. Um, we have a responsibility. I think, Shysheika mentioned erasure. You'll hear my chief curator, and again, members of my leadership team speak about silences and collections. So the Historical Society has been open since 1864. Um, the histories of many people have been collected and featured and highlighted through our practice. But as many of you may imagine, it hasn't been an even-handed collecting practice for all of these years. And so now we have an opportunity to welcome in those narratives, to take seriously the evidence that deals with all lives in Delaware, not just those of the privileged class, or the sort of ruling class of Delaware. And so those things, making sure that I'm balanced in what I do right now, and that it's defensible down the line, is part of what informs my approach to the work right now. Um, Staff members at the Delaware Historical Society, I think they tolerate it. They tolerate me, but I just remind them that we need to make on-ramps to discourse for people of all backgrounds and all beliefs. And again, if a person doesn't agree with me about anything, I still think that we can gather around an object, around an idea, and have a productive discussion if we go into it with that desire. I mean, so those things also inform me this year, being very careful, but at the same time, we're charged with duty here that we all take seriously. So I want to thank you all for getting into that response. Um,
I would just like to
yes,
jump in to say that truth can be very controversial.
absolutely.
One person's, I mean, we think truth is, well, truth is truth. However, again, depending on people's life experiences, what they know, what they think they know, you know, truth is sometimes very difficult to get at. Um, there was an impromptu discussion that we had in the mayor's office the other day about an historical figure. And we talked about how difficult it is sometimes to separate myth from fiction, uh, from truth, especially when you're talking about history. I mean, there are some things that we can only speculate about. So having those conversations in a congenial way and in a positive way is really important. And sometimes that's difficult to achieve. But it is important to just open the door to everybody's truth and talk about it. And maybe when you walk away, your perspective may have changed or somebody else's perspective may have changed just from that conversation, or at least walk away. Uh, hopefully the conversation is at least thought provoking. So
Thank you for that, Tina. And I mean, that also, I think, connects to the idea you shared earlier about alliances, right? That part of building alliances and friendships and doing things better together is that you have an intersection of ideas. And it's not about one idea winning out over the other, or one set of ideals winning out over another. Often it's about finding those that common ground, and finding a better place beyond that. I cannot help myself, of course, in thinking about partnerships and alliances as one of the outcomes, or one of the things that's informing what we do right now. It's also, one of the greatest lessons from the Revolutionary era is the role and the importance of a Marquis de Lafayette, and other allies from around the world during that era, who contribute in ways to the narrative, to the history, in a way that improves our understanding today, and which also gives us grounds to discuss how we both pursue our alliances and our friendships today, how we build on them, and perhaps what happens when we abandon those alliances, those friendships. And I'll stop there. I'll really stop there, and not get too much farther into it. Um, Again, folks, thank you all for being here today, and for joining us for this conversation. You may have already said it. Or actually, I'll ask a couple more questions. And I believe I know the answer to this. I think we've already touched on it, but as part of the preparation for Delaware 250th, and some of the things that we have coming up, hopefully to serve a very diverse public, people of all backgrounds in all parts of the state, will have an opportunity to join the conversation and do something, to learn out loud this year, if you will. But I'll ask you all, have you seen new or strengthened relationships forming between cultural organizations as a result of what's happening in Delaware 250 planning? I know the answer is yes. And so I'll ask you all for any sort of good examples of what you've seen happen between institutions as we grapple with this question together.
So I'll jump in first. The answer is yes, as you already knew. I think that the partnerships and collaborations have definitely strengthened through this celebration. And one major example for us, Christina Cultural Arts Center, is our partnership with the Delaware Historical Society. We were actually talking about it at the beginning of this call, where some of my staff have been meeting with the DHS staff on a window down there. And then also this coming October, we've been in conversation about a huge learning experience that'll happen over a few days. I won't say too much more about that, but that's going to be an amazing experience to celebrate the 250th.
And jumping in, we're trying to use this as an opportunity to work with partners we wouldn't normally work with. So working with the Lewis Public Library on this photography project, asking them to engage their community to get their photographs. So this is what we really hoped was to expand our relationships beyond just arts. And because really that when we look at the Works Progress Administration and the 1970s Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, the arts was not arts. The arts was everything. It was public works. It was infrastructure. It was community development. It was all the things. And we're hoping that we can extend beyond our little corner of the visual arts world and move into all those exciting realms with those partnerships.
Well, we definitely, the city of Wilmington is depending on partnerships, and we've been able to form some very solid partnerships coming out of the 250th committee, because many of the activities that we're planning for 2026 are being led by folks who are committee members. There are a couple of legacy projects that committee members will be leading to make happen. So without those partnerships, we would not have the human resources or even creative resources to do all of the things that we are planning to do in 2026. So without those partnerships coming a lot from the committee and the other colleagues that committee members brought on board, we would not be able to do what it is that we are planning to do. So yes.
Yeah. No, thank you all. I mean, I believe that again, as leaders, it's our responsibility to before we like mash our staff together and have them, try to pursue some goal that we get together and make sure we're on the same page, just in terms of the alignment between where you are in your strategic plan and where we are in ours, for instance. But of course, everyone has this Delaware and USA 250 thing looming over their heads. So just to use that as a point to create new connections, but also to pave a road forward where we don't just work together once, but instead we start showing up together and increasingly, or continuing to seek new partnerships in unexpected places, like Molly said. I think doing a little bit of all of that moving forward will be an important thing, or an important, sort of muscle to have built during this time that we could take full advantage of, to take full advantage of. And I realize this is not the case for everyone. Um, but again, I told you my birth year, 1977. So for me, I will get to be in the workforce and have something to do with a celebration like this probably once. I mean, when I'm 99, nobody's probably going to want to hear from me and what I want to do for America's 300th. And so, there's a moment in my life where I want to get this right. And I'm looking forward to, not just what we do together this year, but again, how much more we can do, having overcome the challenges that we know are ahead and the ones that are behind us, and having touched probably a more diverse public with this year's celebration than we could have anticipated doing alone. I have full confidence in what's ahead this year, but think, continuing these partnerships will be the real thing. And if we are truly about the work of serving community, then we must continue these beneficial partnerships in order to serve the whole person and not just serve our organizational goals. And so I'm really excited about what's ahead. And again, grateful, to have an opportunity to be a part of this. And so again, I did not want to get into anything that could bog us down in the conversation, but I'll leave an open-ended question for you all, and then we'll try to get a little bit of feedback from the folks who are here. It looks like Erik Raser-Schramm of Delaware 250 will not be joining us this evening, and that's a shame. He sends his regrets. But again, here's a person who can tell us, to align with what we're doing as individuals, but also what we're doing in partnership around Wilmington 250. There's also a sort of corresponding effort on the state level. And so you'll be able to learn more about Delaware 250 through their website and through some of the media outlets for what's going on there moving ahead. But we did miss his presence tonight and are all, happy to be working with him. So Shysheika, Tina, and Molly, I will ask you if you're comfortable answering. Um, if you have any discomfort or any worries around our approach, around what we are attempting to commemorate, and think critically about this year in America's 250th birthday and in Delaware's 250th birthday. It's just between us and 20 of our closest friends here. But are you able to share what worries you, if anything, or what are the landmines that we're avoiding that'll keep us on track, that could throw us off of the conversation we're trying to have. And I'm sorry I use all these physical metaphors, landmines, and all that stuff. I really apologize. But what are we being careful about, and what concerns us as we try to do good work in a moment where we think it would benefit the communities we serve?
Um, well, I get less and less concerned every day because you have to keep occupying the narrow space between creating the platform, doing what you think is right, being open to all perspectives, whether you agree with them or not, treating everyone equally in that discourse. And if we can keep doing that, you have to just let the chips fall where they may. And if you don't have 10% of people on either side vocally criticizing you, then you're probably not doing it right. And so when I get those comments on either side, you're not going far enough, like this should only be a one side of you, or how dare you even? And it's not just about subject matter or content matter of exhibitions. It's sometimes how much space somebody wants to take up within our organization. They want to dominate the conversation. They want their group to have the preferential treatment. They feel that there's ownership above and beyond being an equal stake, just like everybody else. And the harder you shut them down, the harder they'll come back at you. And it's just a reminder you have to ignore the fringe on either side and stay the course. And the other thing, watching the Ken Burns's documentary, I know that the country's crazy right now, but if you really learn about our history to the founding, we were very on brand with our craziness. This is just what we do from time to time. We go at each other's throats. We disagree neighbor to neighbor, family member to family member. We don't let go. And then the things do pass and things do get better. Like I believe deeply in the country and my neighbors and being a citizen. So I am less and less worried by the day, but that's just my optimistic take.
Well, Molly, I say here to everything that you said. And Ivan, you were born a year after 1776 celebration. I was at 1776 celebration in Boston watching the Boston Pops play. So it's, there is no way, and I say this all the time in many meetings that we have when we're talking about solving a problem or solving concerns or addressing concerns. The goal cannot be making everybody, and I'm going to say happy. It
Mm-mm.
just can't be. It's not about making anybody happy, quite frankly, in my mind. I think it's about doing what you believe is the right thing to do. And I mean, and that takes what you've been doing is listening all the time. It's not you come out on your own and it's just your opinion. There's all of this information that is coming all of the time. So you take all of that and then you do the best you can with it. So to answer your direct question, I almost am never concerned because what I try to do is just put out there what it is that I think that it's the best that I can do, or it feels like the right thing to do at the time. And, and I don't necessarily ignore what other people are saying, but I don't let what other people are saying, all the fringes, as Molly said, upset me or make me concerned. Because that just takes my energy and attention away from, keeping my eye on what it is that we're trying to do to make a difference in this world. So it's just keeping your eye on making a difference and doing what feels like the right thing.
I'd have to say something similar to Tina in terms of staying focused. Um, now, to be frank, I mean, number one, every nonprofit always has a concern about things like finance, right? Where is the next grant coming from, or federal funding, and blah 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 blah. And being in the arts sector, yes, that is a concern. That's a huge concern, right? Um, at the same time, I'm with Tina in terms of staying focused on the mission and on what we have to do as an organization. So Christina Cultural Arts Center, our mission is to empower underserved communities through the arts. And that's what we're going to do on a regular basis, regardless of what is happening. Now, will we turn blind eyes to what is happening? No. And we'll continue to say what it is, tell the truth, stand up. Um, but in terms of concerns, the concerns are the same. It was the same before the craziness in this country. It'll probably be the same going forward as a nonprofit. It's always the concern about ensuring that the mission is carried out, ensuring that we have the funding to carry out the mission. Um, and yeah, the country is absolutely insane. Okay. But as an organization, Christina Cultural Arts Center is just going to strive to do what we've been doing, and making sure that Christina stays a safe haven, for those who come in our doors. So I would say what we're concerned about, the same thing that every nonprofit is, funding and then continuing the mission.
And I think on top of that, maybe the biggest concern is that people won't know the work we're doing. They won't have the opportunity. I think that's more my concern. Will the students, will the youth, will they have a chance to come and experience this more so than anything else? Everyone has to draw their own conclusions, and we have to be neutral about what those conclusions are, what their feelings are. We just want them to see it and have their own thoughts. And if they've done that, and honestly, any strong reaction to art is a positive reaction because you've made them think. So if they get a
Mhm.
really negative reaction, I'm like, well, it must have worked because you
Job
made
done.
it. So
Well, it's interesting, Molly, because it's not just about art. If there's a strong reaction, if people are listening and paying attention to whatever it is you're doing, then that can be a
That's a
positive.
plus.
So
oh,
we
some of
share,
my favorite art
we share this.
exhibitions are the ones I've hated.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I mean,
Well,
and as far as the arts are concerned, I mean, we've been on this bubble before,
Mhm.
um, and yet we're still here, in the arts community. We're still here. There was a time when there was a total defunding of the NEA, for
Mhm.
example. And it worked itself out. It wasn't easy, but we got back on track. Um, this year, we received funding from a couple of organizations that are who uses NEA funds as a pass through to give out to other organizations. The Delaware Division of the Arts is one, Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation. I mean, there are a lot of organizations that depend on money coming in from the NEA. When we got a call from one of our funders that said, we can't promise you that this grant that you've applied for and was approved for will be, we may not have it. Do you plan to move forward? And our response was, we will move forward. We'll figure out a way to make it happen.
Mhm.
Because it's about the artist. We have a contract with an artist who is depending on, our moving forward with them. It's not their fault that, politics or whatever gets in the way of them making their art. It's not their fault. So we said we plan to move forward, come hell or high water. We'll figure out how to get this done. And I think that that's the attitude that has kept us not just the arts, but as a people, um, that's kept us hopeful, and resilient. When we make a commitment, as I tried to say before, that we're just trying to do the right thing, trying to make a difference. And I think that that is what keeps us together, even in crazy times. Because there are
Agreed.
times, as crazy as these times are, and they are crazy,
They are crazy.
there have been crazier times in the past, which is, what this opportunity to learn about history helps us to understand. That as bad as it has been absolutely worse. And as Stephen Sondheim says, one of my favorite Stephen Sondheim songs, we're still here. We're
Mhm.
still here.
Surviving.
thank you. Thank you all. I mean, I won't, and maybe no, I asked the question I intended to ask. I will say that I'm just an administrator whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood. That I'm trying to walk carefully in the work, which I stated earlier. I am worried about overcorrection.
Hmm.
That when we swing too far one way, again, I don't want to be caught up in a wave of emotion. And again, my staff members will tell you I don't do anything quickly. But part of that is to take a moment and realize that I'm in the business of bearing witness through the Historical Society. And again, that we are inviting as many people into discourse as possible while excluding, as few people as possible. I love what Molly said, 10% this way, 10% that way. If it's not, if they're not in, if nobody's in conflict with you in those margins, then you're probably not doing the right thing. And so, I want to protect our staff members and the objects that we've collected as a historical society that we believe helps tell the story of the region, especially this sort of political statehood story of the region. And I don't want that to be misunderstood or misinterpreted. I also would like to be able to communicate in ways that cannot be misconstrued. Because I think one thing we've learned about language recently is that even your honest words might sound strident to
Mm,
someone with a different
yeah,
different pair of ears. And
yeah.
so again, I'm not going to extract the truth from what I say and write. But what I have to do is write and rewrite and rewrite. And no matter what, no words stand the test of time. But I would like them to be as evergreen as possible. Someone talked about where we are at this time politically, and I think all of us have been in our professions long enough to have seen what a different federal setup looks like. The When state administration changes or when the city's administration changes, that we need to have a diverse pie of support and diverse resources that help undergird our institutions. Too heavy in one area, and we're set up to fall. I mean, so those are some of the things that I work with my staff on, and that we think about, all the time, and think about together out loud as we try to leave this institution, lead it in a good way, but also leave it in a better way than we found it, or a more stable and sustainable position than we found it. So that's the kind of nerdy stuff that I worry about, but it's also what I'm made of and what brings what I bring to the work. So look, I believe that there's a couple of folks here who may have questions for us, and who may ask more pointed questions than I have. So again, thank you, everybody, Shysheika, Molly, Tina, and even Erik in your absence. Just thank you all for being here tonight to engage with folks and talk a little bit about Delaware 250 and what's ahead. But I feel like we may get some other questions from folks who are in attendance. Then I'll also ask Hannah to share some details about the exciting stuff we have coming up at the Historical Society in the weeks and months ahead. But I'm sure all of us will tell you, check our websites, check our social media, sign up for our newsletters, and you'll be pleasantly surprised at what we're all doing, both together, but also separately, to try to serve these many communities that overlap and intersect and sometimes come together in our galleries together. So, are there any audience or guest questions, Hannah or Brittany? And then, do you all have anything you want to share?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much to Shysheika, Tina, Molly, and Erik. Before we get started with questions, we just want to let you know that you can pop your question into the chat, or you can raise your hand and we will click on you to ask your question. Thank you.
And Britt, maybe while we wait for that, I'll say I will invite people to leave information, especially relevant links that are relevant to what we're talking about, or information you want to share that's appropriate. You can drop that into the chat. But Hannah, Brittany of our Mitchell Center for African American Heritage at the Delaware Historical Society, do y'all have any upcoming events or goings on that you'd like to share with folks here that are either DHS wide or Mitchell Center specific, while we wait on any questions from the audience?
Sure thing. So we have some upcoming events that are really exciting. On the 29th, we have a sold out event, but I'm going to read about it anyway, just in case any remaining seats become available. We have another panel conversation with Professor and author Gloria J. Brown Marshall in our Old Town Hall building. That's on January 29th at 6 p.m. We also have a bunch of Black History Month events coming up, including some walking tours in Old Newcastle that take folks from the Reed House and Gardens, our Newcastle location, throughout town to talk about Black families who lived in Old Newcastle and the way that their labor shaped the history and culture of Old Newcastle. Staff will be leading that every Saturday during the month of February, so there's multiple opportunities to take advantage of this. We also have an upcoming From the Vault Object Deep Dive conversation. This one is going to be on February 18th at 6:30 p.m. with Dr. Brittany Henry, who's going to be talking about the Americans of Achievement board game. We also have our next Zoom event is on February 23rd. It's going to be with Taylor Brookins, who is a National Park Service historian, and she'll be talking about Hetty Saunders and her relocation to New Jersey when she self-emancipated. That is going to be at 7 p.m. And that is another Zoom opportunity. And then we have a Transcribe-a-thon event on February 28th at 1 p.m. That'll be taking place at Route 9 Library. This is where we ask you, the people, to help us in transcribing and improving the Delaware Historical Society's metadata. And I think that is all of the upcoming events that anyone can handle or digest. But thank you all for listening.
Oh, thanks, Hannah. No, I was going to say, I would like to add, if you can't make it to the 28th for our Transcribe-a-thon, we will have 3 more Transcribe-a-thons throughout the year. And as Shysheika mentioned, we will be working with CCAC to create a stunning Black History Month window display that will be featured in front of our windows of the Delaware History Museum. And we will be going with the theme of A Century of Black Commemorations. That is the Black History Month theme for 2026.
I'd like to mention that all of the events and activities that have been shared tonight and any more that will be shared, there will be an opportunity to submit them so that they will be featured on the website that will be listing all of the 250th activities. So there will be a submission process. And again, we'll talk about, all of that at the press conference and a press release proceeding or after the press conference on, I think, February 3rd. Ivan or Brittany or Hannah?
Yeah. Yes, February 3rd.
That's correct.
February 3rd. Yeah.
Thank you all. And thank you, Hannah and Brittany, for sharing information about what we have coming up. I will say that the conversation tonight, I think, scratches the surface of what's going on. So I really say tune into that press conference. This is a time to celebrate, folks. Whether we're celebrating our presence and the tools we have in our hands and the opportunity that's in front of us, or we're looking back at 250 years, but also think it's the time to think critically and to commemorate. One of the things I'm most excited about, or a couple of things, is that the Delaware Historical Society has been the host of National History Day for a decade. This year's, I believe, theme is about revolution, reaction, and reform in history. So again, for some of our youngest citizens and the folks we hope will become our members and patrons to the arts in the future, will be grappling, with these questions in a very public and fun forum this spring. We'll also be staging a Youth Continental Congress to get young folks to wrestle with and answer some of the same questions that our quote unquote founding fathers or nation's founders would have talked about all those years ago. Again, to put them in a position to feel the weight of some decision making, but also to inherit this. Some kid will say that they were born in 2026 and or 2027 and that they didn't witness this. And so we need to leave good evidence for that child, Ivan 2.0. We need to leave good evidence for that child of what we commemorate at times like this during these major birth dates in the nation's history. Anyone else, anything else to share before we close ourselves out? I see. Thank you all for putting contact info in the chat. Anyone else?
We will have all of the contact information and any of the links that have been shared we will share out to you all afterwards. So if you aren't able to write it down now or copy paste, we will have that for you. And even if
Excellent.
it's not a question you want to put in the chat or you want to raise your hand and just talk about, what your thoughts are on Delaware 250, America 250, please feel free.
Excellent.
I'll just offer this one thing if you don't mind. Ivan, as we are celebrating 250, the one thing that has struck me most is like a leaving question. Um, what will history say about Delaware 250 years from now, based on this moment and how we are celebrating and recognizing history through the arts and all other forms, from a material culture perspective, from a historical cultural perspective, what will history say about Delaware? Um, and I just think it's something to think about as we are planning. What will history say about us as we move forward?
But Carol, I'm not sure where the legacy projects will be 250 years from now. But we hope that some of the things that we have planned will have a much longer shelf life than just 2026. Legacy projects are extremely important for exactly the reason that you said, and also what Ivan said earlier, for our young people to have, something that they can, um, just say, yeah, that happened then. And what does that mean now? Why, so we have a couple of really exciting legacy projects that are planned. But as I said, I do not want to bury the mayor's lead for his press conference next month. So,
And then I'll just offer this one more thing because this is a thing too. Um, as we are planning and thinking, there's something to be said about memory work, and the work of memory. And so, um, memory work is broad, and it has we all do memory work when we save pictures, when we preserve things. And so this is also something to be said about memory work, because as much as we are celebrating the history and the context of this country and of Delaware individually, as Americans, as Delawareans, as citizens of the world, there is something about shaping memory in this time and in this season too that is important to consider. That's all.
Well,
I will not be preachery, but I'm done.
thank you. Thank you, Carol, with the mic drop. No, I think that's a great question that can resonate. Um, Again, we're forming new memories right now, and then as those memories are being shaped, I think that's a great question, for us to be able to amplify through our work at the Historical Society. And I see that Mitchell Center picked that up. Yes. Well, thanks again, everyone. Thank you for your time. It's good to see everyone on here. Some of the names I'm familiar with, others I look forward to meeting you in person this year and getting back to the good work we're doing. One thing I'm convinced of every day for a different reason is that the work we're doing is important and that we must stay the course. Um, no matter what. I'm feeling that every day. So just thank you all for being my partners in this time on this work.
Great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you, everyone.
Thank you
thank you all
Have a
very
good
much.
night.
Have a
Stay
great
Good night.
night.
warm. Stay warm.
and safe.
And
Yes.
safe. Yeah.